Welcome to the Perfectly Flawed podcast. Thank you so much for joining me today. For those that don't know you, would you like to tell me a little bit more about yourself?
So my name's Zac Stubblety-Cook. I am recently returned from Tokyo with 2 medals, 1 gold and 1 bronze, in the 200 breaststroke and the mixed medley relay. I'm 22 years old. I grew up in Brisbane. I'm currently in quarantine in Howard Springs.
Amazing. I can't imagine quarantine's too fun, but I'm sure it's not too bad.
It's not too bad. It's actually it's been pretty good so far. Like, I think I was talking to someone this morning about it. Like, they talk about the Olympic come down, and it's like it's almost perfect. It's like a forced come down.
Yeah, that's true. I didn't think about it like that.
Yeah, it's almost like forced into reflection and forced into like actually taking time for yourself. Because I think often people get caught up post big events and post highlights of their life that just go and don't necessarily take the time to feel the feels.
Yeah. That's super important. How did you go leading into Tokyo?
Physically, everything went pretty well. Like, there's a few little niggles very close to the meet that were yeah, like they were concerning, but I was trusting in myself and trusting in the team around me, between the coach and the physios and the doctors, that it would all be okay and everything would settle before we started racing, and it did. And having faith in your team is pretty good, but mentally leading in, I was feeling pretty good. Like, this year's been quite a good year for me building into the Olympics. Like, and if I look back over the last few years, it's been quite a good progression. Obviously, there has been some low points, and we'll probably talk about that a bit later. But it was a good building and a very good year for me, and building through nationals to Sydney to trials and then to ultimately the Olympics was all about refinement and the progression of myself, and that's kind of how I viewed it, with the process always in mind.
Yeah, and I think that's really important, is thinking about the process and not as much on the outcome, because so many things can go wrong if you forget about the steps to get there in the first place.
Absolutely.
How do you think I watched particularly the 200 breaststroke, being a breaststroker myself. How did you go into it mentally? Because watching it, you weren't necessarily at the front of the pack at the start of the race. You very much stuck to your own race plan. How do you go mentally leading into a race like that?
I'm obviously aware of like what other people are going to do, and like I'd raced. I had the privilege of being have had raced all those people. So the only person I hadn't raced is Maddie Matheson, which I kind of have a chuckle at every time, because I'm quite into cooking and quite into all that space. And there's another famous chef called Maddie Matheson. So every time I heard his name being announced, I had a little chuckle, because it's like, if anyone wants to go have a Google right now, go have a Google of Maddie Matheson chef, and you'll understand exactly why. And I guess for me going in, I knew I had to stick to my race plan, and that was always the plan. It was always about process, and it was always about getting the best swim out of me possible. And whether that meant win, lose, or draw, I would be content in getting the best swim out of me. And I was in pursuit of like a perfect race, and we got close, not quite there. I think haven't really had a lot of time to look at analysis and those kind of things, but I think there was a few little tweaks and a few little spots where I can progress further, but that's all for the next 6 months, but going in, it was all about process, and that it might look and feel different, but it is the same.
Yeah, definitely. So you spoke about before, like in quarantine, you're forced into taking that time to feel the feels and reflecting. How are you going about that now?
A bit of a roller coaster. Like, I think the first couple of days were a bit like very high and very low. Like, you come from racing like I raced from Thursday until the last session every session. So, and before that, I was racing since the Tuesday. So really, I had like 2 sessions off between Tuesday and the Sunday, the final session, and so I didn't really have the opportunity to take a breath. And then, kind of that afternoon, we had our last celebration before we flew out, and had a moment to actually take it all in and see how that was going. And then when I got here, it was like, you're on that such a high level when you've actually kind of taken it in, and then getting here, it kind of just hit. It was like, oh, like I'm not seeing Mac, who I've lived with for the last 3 weeks. It's a bit like unusual. And I think I've been reflecting every day and trying to write most days about how I am feeling and where I'm at mentally. And like, I'm getting more and more level, but you don't know how to feel. And like, I think I've learned to accept that that's okay. If that you don't know how to feel, but ensuring that you are actually like acknowledging that you are feeling like, I don't know how I feel, and exploring that is something that I'm trying to work on still here. And I still am not all that good at it, but I'm trying to get better at it.
Yeah, it's definitely a work in progress always. I think you can always fine tune things. Is it something that you've always done, reflecting and writing things down?
Probably over the last year, I've gotten a lot more into it. When I was over there, I actually was reflecting like at least twice a day, most days, because I was taking a photo every day or most days of something around the village or something at the pool, or Mac was taking a photo from one of the events or something we had on, or a meeting we had on, etc. And I was printing them out with a little like instant camera, and then kind of writing and reflecting and having a bit of emotion. And then on the other half, I have another book that I was just writing about pure emotion, and that definitely helped me through the last week to kind of park things. But before that, I definitely did it during trials, and I've definitely done it when I've needed it. Something I want to do more of, and something I think is a really good tool, and something that I can feel myself getting better at tapping into those things, and better at being a lot more self-aware because of it. So I think, I've probably been doing it for the better half of nearly a year, but by the same time, I think like I'm only kind of just scratching the surface of what I want it to be.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's a really good skill to have, and I don't think many people either do it or know how to do it. How did you come across it? Like, was it something that a friend suggested, a coach, psychologist? How did you come about
Yeah.
doing it?
So I've come about doing that through my psych. So him and I work very closely and spoke every day during Tokyo pretty much, which was great. Like, and it was just wasn't necessarily like a phone call or anything like that. It was more a text with like actually my reflection, and him then going, like, have you thought about this, or have you thought about this, after him reading it. So that was really helpful in that regard. But yeah, that's probably where it stemmed from, which stems from a bit of the other part of my story.
Would you like to expand more on that other part of the story?
Yeah, so in 2018, I probably hit like very much a low point in my career. Like, might not seem like it, but 2017, I made World Juniors, medal at World Juniors, captained the team. Was one of two. We only got 2 medals at that meet. I was a large winning percent of myself, and then the year after, made my first senior team. Was really excited to have a home Commonwealth Games senior team. It was like an opportunity that I really wanted to take, and knew I was really capable of swimming fast. And it was all heart, and didn't really think about the process. I thought it would just happen, and that's something I still have to remind myself of. It's not just going to happen. You have to think about the processes around it, of how to achieve that, which I'm getting better at slowly but surely. So yeah, like, those kind of things. Yeah, so that was a low point where I kind of didn't swim to my ability and had a few things, probably underlying things that I probably won't get into, but yeah, I had a few underlying things that made me throw myself completely at swimming and made me throw myself into it, and that was all I had, and then when that didn't perform, it made me kind of it made me, my whole world kind of flip upside down of like what was going on and like what else was I doing, like maybe completely kind of reevaluate where I was at in life. And it happened very quickly because only like 2 months after that I was competing again at Pan Pacs. So that moment where I can still remember, like 2 weeks, 3 weeks after, I think it was 3 weeks, basically post Commonwealth Games, we had a week off, and then we were back in the water for a bit, and then we were going to Japan for a training camp and racing. I can remember like swimming on a Tuesday afternoon in a short course pool, and just like my mind wanting to get out, like all it wanted to do was get out of the pool. And like I was almost like I was depressed is the blunt way to put it. It's the word I'm dancing around, but that point is where I then sought out help, and I then talked to a psychologist outside of swimming. And for me, that was the most important part, because it was someone external that didn't know what was going on in the pool, and didn't necessarily go, well, like this performance wasn't even that bad. Like he had no idea about swimming and no idea what the performances meant, which for me now is really helpful, because I kind of have to over explain swimming. And like still to this day I work with the same psych, and having to over explain things often makes you talk about them a lot, and you then all of a sudden they lose their power. Like you chat about it and it's like, oh, that actually like doesn't sound too bad. And so that part of my life definitely like was a turning point in my swimming career. One of the few, there's a few before that, but that was the most recent one, and the most recent one where I made a big change to fully commit to swimming, and and then proved to myself for the first time in a long time that I could do it, and if I put my mind to something and worked hard at it, that it was possible. That was one of the first times I proved to myself that I could do that, and that was kind of the building the self-belief back up, and that was Pan Pacs and Pan Pac trials and that period of my life. And so yeah, that's like where that psych piece came from, and that's then how that's progressed, I guess, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you for sharing that, because it can be hard. And as you said, you kind of dance around the word, you want to say it, but you don't really want to say it. Like it's like, it's there, but do I really want to say it out loud?
Yeah, because it has stigma around it,
There is, it definitely is. I also found it interesting how you said that, I lost my train of thought now. It's gone.
Come back.
I was like, I was going to ask the question, and now it's gone. Yeah, damn, that's so frustrating. I had a really good question. Anyway, the stigma though, when talking to various people, in particular males, I found that they've said not only like there's a few stigmas that we talk about, one of them just being the mental health stigma in general, one of them being that men don't really talk about their feelings, and then the other one being that as an athlete you're perceived as strong both physically and mentally. Do you think all of those or any of those played a part?
I think they all did. I think they all exist, and I think like by nature I'm quite stubborn as well, so that doesn't help the case either. Yeah, there's definitely a stigma, and like I think it's becoming more and more normal to talk about your feelings and to check in with people, but I think there is still that next step, especially in like, I was 18 at the time. Like I didn't even know, what feelings really were and how to deal with them. Like it was just like you felt them and you didn't know how to feel with them. It was like push them aside more so than actually feel with them and deal with them. Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was definitely a time where I bottled a lot of things up and fed into a lot of those stigmas and believed I was stronger and bigger than that. But I think the sooner you realize you're not and life's hard, the happier you'll be. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think a really big thing is that you said before is when you voice it out loud, you're like, oh, it doesn't sound as bad as what it sounded in my head.
Yeah, absolutely. Like when you bottle things up and you ruminate, like that's what it is. You just keep spinning and keep spiraling. And like for anyone that lives in Brisbane, as you drive into the James Street off the Story Bridge, there's like a big sign. It's like every time I think of this sign. It's like the more you think about it, the bigger it gets. It's just like it's so simple, but like we do it every day, and we do it like as athletes. Like all athletes can attest to this. Like if you're thinking about the race, it's just going to get bigger and bigger and bigger in your own head, but like it's still the same race as when you started thinking about it. So I think, yeah, like I guess that's all I wanted to say there.
Yeah. It's also interesting, like when I talked to Ali Cole and even James Turner, they said, like when you really break it down, particularly James said this, he goes, it's just a run. Like I'm literally just running in a straight line or I'm running in a circle. When you really break it down, and in regards to swimming, you're literally following a black line. You get
Yeah,
from one end to the other. That's it. That's all it
it's
is.
like I guess that's something that I do have to remind myself of, and that's something I reminded myself of last week. It was like it's 4 laps as fast as you can go. Like that's it. There's no other way to put it. Like when you put it down to that, that's all it is, and it's pretty simple.
Yeah, and you've done it so many times before.
Yeah, exactly.
Like it's nothing new. It's like I've done this so many times in training. I've raced it a million times before. It's nothing new.
Yeah, it might look and feel different, but it is the same.
Yeah, absolutely. If we take it all the way back now to when you first started swimming, how did you fall into the sport and what made you stick it out this far?
Probably a couple of things, and probably a couple of things I didn't realize until recently, I think. Probably like the reason I fell in love with the sport was I was competitive as a kid and wanted to race my friends and wanted that social side of it. Believe it or not, there is a little bit of a social side to me. Yeah, I think when I was a kid, it was like Friday night club nights and doing that and racing the half lap and racing the 25s and racing the 50s and trying to make it into the last heat with your mates. And those kind of things was always fun and challenging. And then as I progressed as a swimmer, it was looking back now, I think I was doing it subconsciously and doing it without even knowing, but I was trying to find like my edge while still enjoying myself. So I guess what I mean by the edge is like where I can be at my best, kind of like, and pushing into like the person I am, I guess, like finding that edge of who I am, I talk about it, I think about it like a knife, like you're kind of like on the edge of it, but you don't want to fall over because you'll kind of collapse or injure or hurt yourself, if you will, but you're trying to find and sharpen that edge and hone in that edge of like just getting it really fine and just getting it like, and finding the person you are and maybe finding a crack and patching it up, that's what I think I've always done, and it's probably part of my value of getting the best out of myself. And I think I've still got more to give, and even now I think I've still got more to give, and always like I'm striving to be better than I was yesterday and do things better than I was yesterday. That's me to a T and that's who I am. So yeah, like I mean, does that kind of answer it? Like that's why I've fallen in love with it later in my career, and probably what I was getting out of it when I was younger, but only realized that later in life. But if I'm honest, I think like I was very lucky to have quite a few good coaches as kids, between like people that have represented their country in New Zealand. Like Kirk Taylor was a big influence in my career early on, and Glenn Houseman, for any swimmers that would know that name, he was technically one of the first people to break 15 minutes, but the timing didn't work and never really got the credit he deserved. Was one of my first coaches. And then like having an opportunity to swim at school and basically get a very good education because I was swimming was such a privilege.
Yeah, absolutely. So do you think, I mean, you've kind of said in there the impact that sport has had. Do you think that's evolved though? And do you think like how, I mean, obviously, I mean, there is a social impact that swimming has. There definitely is that social side. But you said, there was a time where you didn't even want to be in the pool. Do you think the way you've utilized sport has changed?
Yeah, probably. Like I think it was definitely a lot more social throughout the end of primary school and into high school, when kind of swimming started getting competitive. But beyond that, into now, it's very much like I'm a person before I'm an athlete. I'm still very much live by that motto and try to spread myself across lots of walks of life in order to get the best out of myself in the pool, because I'm not a person that really like I love it, and it's an outlet though, like it's a pursuit of excellence. That's what it is, and that's what I strive to be like in the pool. And I'm just lucky enough to have that opportunity in something that I do love doing. It definitely gives me a clear head, and gives you a very quick reality check sometimes when you need it. It's that has definitely evolved in from being a lot more social, and I think that's just comes with maturity as an athlete and as a person. As you mature, you kind of realize where your values lie, and for me, it's like I'm definitely a person that likes to align myself with people with similar values, and that, like that's something that I've changed. I'm no longer a chameleon, as a lot of people are through their teens, and a lot of people are through their even into their 20s as they start university. Like I'm only 22, but I feel comfortable in myself, and that's probably changed over the last 2 to 3 years. And that's something that I can attribute to swimming, and I can attribute to like finding myself in that space of my life and being able to apply it elsewhere.
Yeah, absolutely. I think a big question that I found asking myself, particularly during lockdown, is who am I without swimming, and how, like, what is my identity without my sport? And a lot of people place value on their worth as how successful they are in their sport.
Absolutely. And I think like deep down, people should realize that's like not what sport's about at all. Like it's about pursuit of excellence and pursuit of your own inner goals, and whatever those goals are, to try and achieve them and feel a sense of accomplishment in that way, not necessarily the other way around. Again, it all comes back to a process orientation rather than a outcome focused. I think a lot of people question themselves during that lockdown period, and I definitely did, of why I love the sport. And for me, there's probably like 3 reasons. Finding that edge and being able to redline yourself is probably number one. Because I know, like anyone that's listening that is a swimmer or runner or AFL player, they can attest to the euphoric feeling after an extremely hard session, both mentally and physically. And then like on top of that, I think like I do love the social side. I love the people involved. And most of the time I like the quiet. I think like I, I find it was interesting to see the dynamic of like team sports amongst the village and how they're kind of like a bit louder and a bit more vocal, but that's just their way of communicating. Whereas swimming is a very different sport and it's quite quiet and reserved.
Yeah,
And like you're
absolutely.
swimming most of the time within your own head.
Yeah, which can be good and bad. Like there's times where that's exactly what I need, and there's other times where I couldn't think of anything worse is to be stuck in my own head for a few hours.
But at the same time, maybe it is the best thing.
That's true. What you want and what you need are not always the same thing.
Yes.
Super frustrating. How do you go with a hard session then? Like you said, like there's that massive euphoric feeling. How do you push through that to get that feeling?
um, Knowing, I think one thing is like, I don't know if that's hard to, honestly, that's pretty hard to answer because it's like, I'm just like a person that likes to push all the time. I'm not a person, and I think that's probably like just wanting to get the best out of myself is probably the easiest answer to that. Like that's how I get through it. But like on a micro level, it's more like knowing, oh, this is what I've done beforehand. I've got to be better than that. Like, and like those kind of things, like holding yourself accountable to yourself and having goals long term, and then having those goals come all the way down to training goals, and that's a big thing too. You know, like having goals that you've set for the end of the season. Like, you know, I wanted to come back in 104, and so I knew at training this is what I had to do that. So um again, it's process.
Yeah, everything comes back to that. What do you think has been one of your biggest challenges or setbacks so far?
um yeah, definitely the Commonwealth Games period. That was probably the biggest setback so far, biggest challenge that I've had. We're constantly challenged. I think that's something good about Vince. Like we have easy sessions, yes, like Tuesday mornings is an easier session, but there's still like points where he tries to challenge us. You know, and that's something like I think something unique, well, not unique, but you know, that's something that is found in elite sport is that you get comfortable with the uncomfortable. So I guess it's hard to pinpoint a really big challenge because like you're nearly always feeling uncomfortable.
Yeah, it just becomes the norm. What would you say like would be your biggest achievement? I think the average person would say that obviously winning gold at the Olympics is a pretty big achievement, but it's interesting talking to other people. They've valued external things from sport almost more than that who they are as a person. So I'm interested to know where you sit on that.
My biggest achievement, I think, I don't know, like I guess I could say like there's three highlights in my career. The first one would be like my I don't know whether these are biggest achievements, but these are the highlights of my career. Like GPS was like, so Greater Public Schools in Brisbane is like a big competition where you compete for your school. So my last year, that was the 200 medley was actually my highlight because like I turned eighth out of nine at the 100, so fly to back because I can't do either of those strokes, and then turned first after the breaststroke, and then put 15, like I was then 15 meters ahead by the end of the freestyle. But that was just like a fun race to showcase like who I was, and I was really enjoying myself at that point and kind of finding myself again. Pan Pac trials, the 200 breaststroke, it was the last event in the last session, so I had waited all week, and I'm very looking back, I'm very proud of myself to have waited all week and like been so patient, and then like being so determined to make the team. Like that was part of me proving to myself that I could do it. And then obviously last week, but that hasn't really sunk in yet, but I think it will be a career highlight.
I think so. How do you I mean, particularly with the Olympics, how do you go with pressure, external or internal? And where do you think majority of it comes from for you?
My coach put it this way, like one is enough, in terms of pressure. Like you have enough pressure swimming a 2-minute race through 5 years. So like you have enough pressure doing that when you've spent like hundreds and hundreds of hours in the pool. Like to come down to 2 minutes is like you have enough pressure on yourself. Like, so for me, I'm very lucky that my support group and my support like system, so between family, girlfriend, like friends at the pool, they all understand that completely, and they're proud of me no matter what. And that's something that after Com Games I had to realize, because at Com Games I definitely let that external pressure in. But understanding there's no expectation from them and from people closest to you is something that I strive like to continue to do, because I think it's the only way you should be. Yeah. So I guess does that answer your question? Like I wasn't, especially at the Olympics, I wasn't thinking about external pressure. I was thinking about process and thinking about getting the best out of myself, which sounds selfish. And like, Kate got asked this. I remember her being asked this at one of the press conferences after, and she was talking, like, do you feel like inspired by people watching back at home in the lockdown? It's like, yeah, but when I stand behind the blocks, like, yes, we are inspired by everyone back at home and really feel for everyone back in lockdown. Like it bloody sucks. Like it just really does. Like there's no sugarcoating it. But at the end of the day, like when I stand behind the block, my mind is process and think about myself. Like there's no room for other people in that point, in that moment.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't think there should be, because I don't think it's going to be the race that you want if other things are coming into your mind.
Exactly.
How do you go then? Like, what's your inner monologue like when something doesn't go to plan? I guess going back to that 2017-18 period, what was it like then to what it's like now?
Yeah, it's a lot of self-doubt. I think everyone has it, and everyone deals with it in different ways. But for me, that inner monologue definitely then got pretty not dark, or yeah, dark, but like yeah, you question everything. You question what you're doing in life. You question like all walks of life. But now is like a contrast to that. So, for example, my 100 breaststroke wasn't exactly what I wanted at the Olympics. Like I think I was capable of a bit more and capable of probably making at least a semi-final, but didn't even break 60. So, that was a bit of a setback, but I had to look at the positives and trust myself that I'd done the work, and that wasn't a representation of what I'd done and what I was doing in the pool. And that for me is how I now go about things, with that internal dialogue. Yeah, does that kind of answer it all right?
Yeah. When did you notice it change though? Like obviously like it's evolved over time, and speaking to your psych, when did you notice for yourself that, hey, I don't doubt myself as much anymore?
If I'm honest, like probably only over the last year, like I guess, like, and when I am racing, I've a lot of the time I just park a lot of things. Like I'll write things down and park them rather than trying to deal with that extra emotion, and just have a lot of emotional energy still, and not necessarily use a lot of that while I'm racing. So I guess over the last year is definitely been the biggest shift. But by the same time, I think like even like before the Olympics, like there's still doubt, like there's always in the back of your mind, you're always like, oh yeah, I'll be happy with like good enough. And that's why it's like people go, oh, how does it feel to win? Was it always the plan? It's like, well, I was just happy to be there and happy to like even the Olympics were on first and foremost. Like I was happy that I got the best out of myself on the day, and to come away with a win is like even like amazing. Like I, I there's no, I'm not trying to downplay it at all. Like I'm absolutely over the moon. I still don't believe it, to be honest. Like it doesn't not feel real. Like when people go, like I've had a few interviews and like Olympic gold medalist, I'm like, that's something like I never thought would actually happen. Like even now, I'm like, you know, so yeah, like I still have self doubt, like, and I want to normalize that a bit, you know, like it still is there, but it's how I deal with it now is what's changed.
Yeah. And I think, unfortunately, it is something that's always there, and it is just a matter of the way you go about it that changes. What was it like when you looked up at the board after that 200 breaststroke? When you first saw the board, what was that feeling like?
Disbelief. I was like, nah, this didn't, like, am I about to wake up? Am I about to roll over and wake up? Like, is it the morning of the final? Like, am I about to wake up? It probably hit me the most when two things happened. When Arno Kaminya, the Dutch swimmer, came over and gave me a big hug because we've been friends for quite a few years now, and he was just so excited. He's a very emotional person, and he just gets, yeah, he was very, very excited for me, and I was excited for him, and it was just great to be able to share that moment with him. But probably the most, where it hit me the most was watching the flag go up. That was where it was like, holy shit, what the fuck just happened? Like, it was a bit like that moment, but it was like so humbling, and I'm so privileged to actually have had that moment and watched the flag go up and sung the national anthem on the podium and represented the country and proved to myself that I was capable of setting my mind to something and doing something.
Yeah, definitely. I'd love to know more about like the Olympic experience in itself, particularly this year, because it obviously is quite different to what other years it would be. What was it like being in the village, being amongst the other athletes? I'm sure you friends with a lot of them before, but even those that you didn't know, what was the whole experience of it like?
It was very, very positive experience. The Olympic buzz is real. People, everyone tells you that, but it is very, very, very real. It's, I guess, I think the buzz probably comes mostly from seeing people that you see like on TV, like an Ash Barty, a Paddy Mills, you know, like all the basketballers, John Millman, you know, like people you watch like at Wimbledon and people you watch at the Australian Open, like wearing the same uniform as you, sharing the same dream of being an Olympian and being at the Olympics. Like that's, I think, where a lot of the buzz comes from, and not just that, like having the same thing happening in the GB building, in the USA building behind you. Like that's where the buzz comes from. All sharing the same dream, all living in, you know, not necessarily ideal conditions. Like it was great, it was amazing, not denying that at all, but like, you know, you'd prefer a king size bed, or you'd prefer a room to yourself, like you'd prefer your own bathroom. Like, you know, it's not exactly everything how you want, it's standardized. So like that's what's special about it. And like the nitty gritty stuff that's interesting is like, you know, the transport mall is like 50 stops long, and the bus only comes every 15 minutes, and if the bus fills up, you'll miss it and have to get on the next one. Like those kind of things as well. And everyone talks about the buses and transport, and the food hall is huge, it's giant, it's overwhelming the first couple of days, and you don't know how to navigate it, and then you work yourself out and it's all right. But you know, that's the special part, and seeing other athletes achieve their dream, like, you know, watching the decathlete the other day, that was incredible. And like Jess Fox and, you know, the sailors, it's like it's special. It's like a moment that they were immortalized, and something that you share, even if you're not a medalist, even if, like, you understand. There's a mutual understanding of everyone's in pursuit of the same thing.
Yeah,
That's the
absolutely.
feeling.
Yeah. I would love to like know if you got to meet anyone, or did you, in quotations, like fangirl over any particular athlete, like, oh my God, can I get a photo with you? Like, you're so awesome.
Yeah, I got a photo with Ash Barty. That was pretty cool. And I was like, because, like, she just come off Wimbledon and like come straight there basically, which I was like, wow, that's a lot. Obviously she didn't probably have the performance she wanted, but we all have those performances. Yeah, that was pretty cool. And seeing like Patty Mills and all the basketballers with like all their security and stuff was like a bit overwhelming. It was pretty cool to watch that, and like the basketball girls as well, some of their high profile names, but definitely like Ash Barty, when I saw her, I was like, you are a lot shorter than I thought. That was my first thought. No offense to her at all, but
Yeah, that's awesome. Is it weird to think now, given the way you perform, that you're going to be that person for somebody else?
yeah, it's weird. Like the messages I've gotten, like, oh, you're my inspiration, or like, oh, you're my son's new hero and stuff. It's like, it's so humbling to hear, and it's so nice to hear that like I've been able to do that for someone. Like, that's to me even more special than winning. Like, to be able to actually inspire like the next generation, and hopefully, like, I put it to someone the other day, I said, hopefully I'm forced out of the sport, like, eventually by someone I have inspired. I think that's something special, and breeding the culture for the next generation is something also special, and forming our own legacy. We hear about the Hackies, the Thorpies, we hear about Liesl Jones, we hear all those people, and Susie O'Neill and Gian Rooney, and the list goes on in the sport of swimming. We always hear about them, but it's like, I think to be able to forge your own name in history is something special, and to inspire the next generation. It feels weird now, but I think I'm very humbled, and I think it's something I kind of want to tap into, not necessarily to motivate me, but to help them, I think is something. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Would you say that would be like your ultimate goal, is to be able to inspire the next generation?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I think, yeah.
What would you say your other goals? Like, obviously, there's a little bit of downtime after Tokyo, but what's next for you?
We've got a pretty big 3 years, to be fair. So a little bit of downtime, and then pretty straight back into it. So, competition wise, I've got ISL at the end of this year. So International Swimming League for any non-swimmers. And then, there's World Champs beginning of next year, is April trials. So, and then Commonwealth Games at the end of the year, or mid to late next year. And then another World Champs, and then it's Paris. So, there's actually not that much time, and it's exciting. Like, there's not much time in the rest of this year. I find the back half of every year goes so quickly, that I'm looking forward to the next chapter, and I'm definitely going to keep swimming, hopefully at least till Paris, and beyond that, like, I think I'll reassess again after Paris and after the Paris trials, etc., to see whether swimming, where I'm at with swimming, and where I want to go with swimming. And yeah, so that's what's next.
Yeah, super exciting things to come. I do want to go back to where you said that, we'll use the word depressed. What's something, I guess, that you want other people to know that you've learned from that? What's something that you want other people to get from that you've, I don't know if I worded that question very well, but
No, I
something
know
that
what you
you've
mean. I
learned
think
that you want other people to know is normal or okay, or you want to be more normalized or more spoken about?
I think probably like at least 2 or 3 things. I might end up at 3. The first thing is that it's okay to feel that way. And I think that's become more normal. I think we are getting there as a society, and it's getting there as males, that it is more normal and it is okay to feel that way. The second thing is, like, do seek help, because, if you are feeling that way and you are in that space, I think it's really important to seek help, because there is help out there. And there's people that are professionals, and they're not scary people. Like, they make it very easy. And when you do seek that help, they make it very easy. And, third thing is that, I think it's okay to feel that way, but the step is then to talk about it, and then the step is to seek help if you need it, and actually vocalize or write it down, or actually talk to someone as the first step, but then ensuring you do take step 2, not necessarily just feeling it and acknowledging it, because I think people can acknowledge and spiral still. It's about acknowledging and going, and when you are ready, just acknowledging and then saying, well, what's next? For me, that was like, my coach said it to me, the sun will come up tomorrow, you'll be okay, it's only swimming. And that really is exactly what I needed to hear in that moment. And it helped me to take the next step of seeking help and telling the family and talking about it a bit more. And now I'm like nearly 4 years on, talking about it a lot more and a lot more comfortable with it. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, as you said, like, whilst it is normal to feel that way, you don't have to feel like that. There are other ways to go about things. You can find an alternative way to feel, or a strategy, or, something to implement that can make you feel better.
Exactly. And to shift perspective, I think too, is a big part of that.
Absolutely. I do have 3 questions for you to finish with. The first one is, what is something that you're most proud of about yourself?
Most recently, that I am my own person. That's probably what I've been most happy about recently. Like, I'm comfortable in my own skin, which and like, I guess I'm normal. That's how I would put it. Like, reflecting and last week, I just wanted to be my own person during the Olympics and do my thing and do what I do best. So that's probably something I'm proud of.
Absolutely. The next question is, what is your favorite quote or the best piece of advice you've been given?
You're a person before you're an athlete is my favorite advice and quote that I've been given. And the only other one that I can think of is trust the process.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you've definitely reiterated both of those throughout this conversation. The last thing I have is, any tips for those that are listening?
Yeah, be yourself, explore yourself, enjoy the journey, because that's it. I love the Bourdain quote that Deli Carr put on a photo of me after the Olympics, and he just said, the journey is meant to change you, and you might not want it to change, but change is necessary, and enjoy the ride, because if you do have those dark times, it means good times are most likely coming. You can't have the good times without the dark.
Absolutely. All very important things to think about. So thank you so much for joining me today and sharing as much as you have. I'm sure many people will find so much value out of this chat that we've had.
Not a problem. Thanks for having me.